All right, we're getting ready to get started here. Hello, Lauren. Hello, Michelle. Hello,
Hello.
Augustine. Good to see you. We'll give everybody just another minute to get in and get settled. If you don't have, Augustine, where are you joining us from today?
Arizona, Phoenix.
Is it Augustine? Augustine? How do you like to say your name?
Augustine, that's good.
Augustine, very
Augustine.
good.
Yeah.
Where are you? You're in Phoenix?
Yes, Phoenix, Arizona.
Oh, nice. So it's just short of 1,000,000 degrees down there right now?
Yeah, right. It's super hot right now.
Yeah, I have a brother who lives in Scottsdale.
Oh, I see.
Yep, yep.
All right,
Very
nice to
good.
meet you.
What kind of business are you in, Augustine?
It's a furniture store. We got two of them.
Nice. Very good. Very good. And this is your business?
Yes.
Very good. All right. Well, we're gonna be hitting some th topics that should help you with growth today. So if you're looking to scale your business, so we'll get
Thank
into
you.
that. Yeah, you bet. Get pen and paper ready, and if you have any questions, you can type them into the chat. I will do my very best. We got a very packed hour, so we're gonna try to hit as many things we got. Lauren and Michelle will be helping me out today, and I've got a few other people that were registered, but we are gonna go ahead and get going. So. Um, Welcome to the business growth multiplier. Are you guys seeing can I get a thumbs up? Are you guys seeing the slides? Okay, thank you. So welcome to the business growth multiplier. We have got a ton of material to try to hit in about an hour's worth of time. I will be at the end. I've got a small offer that if you guys are interested, you can buy a book, or if you actually just want to have a conversation with me, I can show you how to do that for no charge. But this is going to be about establishing a strategy, not just for your business, but also for your life and how your business fits into your life, not the other way around. Not like trying to shoehorn and fit your life into your business, which is what many of us business owners are used to experiencing. So, if I will tell you this, if you're coming here expecting to learn a bunch of little hacks and tactics and stuff like that, this is not that. There is a marked difference between strategy and tactics. And I will just spare you the time. There is no shortage of tactics out there on podcasts and YouTube videos, et cetera, et cetera. I'm a strategist. So that means I take a look at things from the top down. And I think that that's much more meaningful. So I'm not giving you advice about something that I know you may not do, because I've gotten lots of advice about things that I know that there's no way in the hell I am going to do them because it just doesn't fit with who I am or the direction I want to go in. That's not strategic. That's tactical. So you can't put tactics before strategy. So what we're going to be doing is we're taking a strategic approach to managing your life and your business. And I know the word strategy tends to scare people off sometimes, and that may sound a little militant, but again, there's no point in getting granular on things until you know the big picture of what's going on in your life. Hey Trina, good to see you.
Hey there.
Um, I know that again, the word strategy tends to scare people off a little bit, but this will make more sense as we start talking about the systems and processes here in just a few minutes. So let me first go through who this training is really for. This is for established business owners with employees. I mean, it could be for entrepreneurs who don't have a business yet, but if you know that you're going to be bringing other people on board, this is definitely for you. This is not for the solopreneur or the one man army who wants to stay that way. No disrespect if that is you, as that was me for a really long time. I get it. But what we're going to be talking about is scaling and trying to grow your business, and to do that in a way that doesn't suck the life out of doesn't suck the soul out of your life. If does anybody know what I'm talking about? When, right? Yeah. Thanks, Trina. Um, that's exactly what that's like. So this is going to be about bringing other people on board and enrolling them into the vision that you have for your business. I will tell you, I fought this ideology for years, and I became the bottleneck where I tried to do everything myself. And let's face it, it's not that you can't do everything, but the reality is you can only do one thing at a time. And when you have others in your organization, you can now get multiple things done at a time. And bringing others into your organization has a scaling effect on your business. So later we're going to be talking about growing by addition versus growing by multiplication. And that is based on the types and the quality of the people that you're bringing into your organization and bringing into your business and how you can control that quality. So let's get to today's agenda. First and foremost, we're going to be talking about the systems, and that is the personal and business framework to get your best life. Now, notice I didn't say best business, your best life. It's your business that's going to deliver that lifestyle for you. So that's what we're wanting to do. Number two, we're going to be talking about the people, and we're going to be talking about very basic lessons on both leadership and management. We're going to be talking about the four core functions of business, and every business has to have all four of these functions. So we're going to talk about that as well. Number four, we're going to talk about scaling and how to actually scale the growth so it doesn't metastasize into something that you don't want. Because again, growth is great, but uncontrolled growth is not great, or growth that is growing in a direction that you don't want to go is not great. So this is about having controlled growth. And finally, some of the resources that will set you up for success beyond today. So this is a business approach. Now, when you take a business approach to something, it's obviously when you look at this from the context or from the perspective of a business, there's a systematic side to looking at this as a business, or there's a social side, or processes versus people. Now, right now, what I want to focus on is the systematic side or the process side of the business. And when we're looking at the systems, I'm just going to tell you this. So I wrote this book back here. It's called The Time Wealthy Advantage. There's a picture of it up on the screen there. The Time Wealthy Advantage. Um, oh, the girls have it here. They got their copies. Trina, you got yours on your way. Augustine, if you'd like to get a copy, you can. I can tell you how to get it here in just a second. But
Okay, sure,
what's that?
sure. Thank you.
Okay, you bet. If you'd like a signed copy, it is cheaper if you get it this way from Amazon. And if you order it from me, I'm going to give you a 30-minute one-to-one coaching session in addition to that. So we're going to put a link up on the end on how to do that. If you have to jump off early, please drop a message in the chat, and one of the moderators can get you the link. But right now, I just want you to stay focused on the training. So if you stay to the end, I'll show you how to get that for a lot less than what you would get it for on Amazon. Um, so right now, the let's go through the Viper method. And the Viper method is what I walk through in the book, which stands for vision, infrastructure, process, execution, and reporting. It's an acronym for how I approach life and business. So let's first go through these. Vision is simply where you're trying to go. Okay, so vision is it comes it's listed as two parts, both personal vision and business vision. So when you're looking at your personal vision, let's look at personal vision first. Personal vision asks a very simple question: where do you want to go? Where do you want to go? Business vision just simply asks, okay, great. How are we going to get there? How are we going to get there? And the interesting thing is that when I'm unpacking people's vision, I unpack it in that order, from personal vision to business vision. And the reason I do it in that order is because when you create a business vision before you create a personal vision, you end up creating a life that exists to serve the business. Let me say that again. When you create a business vision before you create a personal vision, you end up creating a life that exists to serve the business. And that sucks. Ask me how I know. Right? I lived way too many years being a slave to my business, and and for what? I didn't have a life to show for it. This business was supposed to exist for me, but somehow I managed to start existing for my business. I had a property management business, I had a rental business, I had all sorts of businesses that were just controlling all of my time. And I was able to enjoy none of it. All the reason I got into business for the first place wasn't there. So this is why I always coach to create a personal vision first. Now, when you're thinking about a personal vision, I like to think of it in the context of writing your 100th birthday speech. Now, my great aunt, my grandmother's sister, just had her 100th birthday, and she came here from Scotland many years ago. Just a phenomenal lady. So it was interesting that I enjoyed her 100th birthday. But when you look at the 100th birthday speech, I want you to think of it in a couple of ways. Okay, this is about crafting a personal vision now. Okay, so think about it. I want you to think about who you would want to be there. Who would you want to be at your 100th birthday, your 100th birthday party, while you're getting ready to give your 100th birthday speech? Next, what would you say? What would you actually say to the people that were in the room? And just think of the actual words. Think of the things that you would talk about in your 100th birthday speech. Next, what would you want others to say to you when you were done speaking? So there you are, you're done. You've earned it. You can say whatever the heck you want. You can probably eat as much birthday cake as you want. You've kind of earned it. So what would you want others to say when you were done? And finally, what is the message that you'd like them to carry outside of the room? What would be the message that you would want carried on to other people? This is your legacy. And this is really important when you start thinking about this in the context of your personal vision. So I really like this exercise because it really starts to get you to think like, well, as old as we are, that still could be 30, 40 years away. And you're thinking, wow, that's, I'm in my 50s. And this is where you go, wow, you don't look anywhere near that old. But so I'm in my 50s now, but the reality is like that's 48 years away from me, but that's a lot of life left to live. And even if we're in our 60s or 70s, that is not beyond the realm of possibility for most people. So the reality is, what would you say during your 100th birthday speech, and craft a personal vision around that? And you'd be amazed at how different it would be from your business vision. So again, I'm not suggesting that personal vision, or I'm sorry, I'm not suggesting that business vision is irrelevant. It just can't come first. So let's look at business vision now. So we talked about personal vision. Let's look at business vision. When we're looking at the business vision, I break this down into 3 C's. And those 3 C's are core purpose, core values, and client avatar. Now, when people often think about their business vision, and I know it's like, hey, what's your business vision? What's your plan for your business? When you break it down to the 3 C's of business vision, it really helps you get really clear about the direction of where you want to go and who you want to serve. And also, what does the business stand for? When you get really clear on these 3 things, everything else starts to fall into place. And you'll see that when we start talking about the 4 core functions of business. So pay attention, because you will see this again. It starts to come full circle, and you will see where I'm going with this. So core purpose. Let's first and foremost, let's talk about core purpose. Core purpose is specifically, what business are you in and what problems do you solve? And you really want to be highly specific in your answers. Don't gloss over this. Don't just say, well, I'm in the furniture business, or I'm in, I just do heating and cooling. Okay, but what do you do? Or I'm in the roofing business. Okay, but what specifically do you do? Are you in residential? Are you in commercial? Do you do big chillers? Or do you do just residential 2.5 ton, 3 ton units, right? Do you do new furniture only, or used furniture, or a mix, right? Do you do wholesale? Do you do mattresses? Like, there's all sorts of different stuff that you can do based on the type of business that you're in. But you really want to be highly specific about what business that you're in, almost to the exclusion of what business that you're not in, right? Starbucks does not sell cheeseburgers. It could, but it doesn't, right? Starbucks could sell soup, but they don't, right? I suppose they could sell caffeinated chicken noodle soup, which sounds cruel and unusual, but they don't, right? But there's a reason for that, because that does not fit their core purpose. So that's the first of the 3 C's. Let's look at core values. Now, core values is what matters to you about this business. And really, at a deeper level, how would the world be worse off if you went out of business? Now, let's not lose sight of what we're doing here, right? We're trying to think of different ways that we can scale our business and grow our business. And you might be thinking, well, why am I defining all this stuff? Because by defining this stuff now, you don't have to go backwards when you've got a bunch of people in your organization that don't fit your core values. Now you're like, great, how do I get rid of these people, right? So start setting this stuff up now. Even if you've never set it up before, start thinking about this stuff now, so that when you try to scale, when you try to grow, you bring the right people into your organization that aren't a barn fire mess. You're like, if you ever worked with someone like, oh my gosh, why do they keep you here? Right? Have you ever worked with someone like that? Yeah, I know what that's like. And I was in the Marine Corps, and I was like, there's just people that hid out in the Marine Corps because they knew they were never going to get hired anywhere else. Right? So these are the sorts of people that you want to avoid coming to your organization. And if they come, you certainly don't want them to stay, because they do not align with your core values. So what we talked about core purpose, we talked about core values. The last piece is your client avatar. Now, again, who specifically and ideally do you want to serve? What are their geographics? What are their demographics? And what are their psychographics? And it's really important that you be specific in terms of who you want to serve. Now, I'm not talking from a racial profiling sort of thing or some sort of illegal thing. That's not what I'm talking about. I'm talking about like, hey, do you really like working with families? Right? Do you really working with people in this part of town? Right? Or of a certain, again, certain demographic, certain age group, certain like, whatever is what you want to define is entirely up to you, right? So when you start thinking about their geographics, I want you to think about, again, where are they? Where do they live? I mean, geographic is pretty straightforward. For anybody that's in a service-based type business, you're constrained generally by geography. Well, and that makes total sense. I am not constrained by geography in this business, but in my property management business, I absolutely am because I'm not trying to do property management nationwide. I do property management in the state of Indiana and only in certain markets. I don't want to be in every market because there's certain markets that just are like banging my head against a curb. So there's certain markets where I can make money and there's certain markets that aren't worth my time, right? So I'm really careful about my geographics. My demographics are who are they? Who they are. So again, when you're talking about geographics, you're talking about where they are. When you're talking about demographics, you're talking about who they are. And when you're talking about psychographics, right, you're talking about how crazy they are, right? How psycho. No, I'm just kidding. When you're talking about psychographics, you're talking about how they think, how they think. So when you're thinking about how they think, this really gets to the crux of things. This is why Google is so big because Google knows how we think. And now we've got AI. Now, like AI is like telling us how we think, which is terrifying. But, when you're thinking about psychographics, you're thinking about ALIA. ALIA. ALIA is attitudes, lifestyles, interests, and aspirations or goals. So think of that when you're trying to define the psychographics of your customer. And this will make a big difference later on when we start talking about the 4 core functions of business. I promise we will get there. So again, to wrap up the 3 C's of business vision, you got core purpose, core values, and client avatar. Those are the 3 C's of business vision. And again, that is your personal vision and business vision. But there's one component to business vision that we really haven't talked about. And let me ask you something. Have any of you ever experienced like, man, I've got all these ideas, but I have no idea when I'm going to find the time to implement them? All right. This is why, thank you, Trina. This is why when you have a business vision, you start to create a business vision timeline. A business vision timeline. Now, I'm not going to have a lot of time to unpack this because I've got so much other material to hit. But I realized when I had gone through this before, I forgot to mention the business vision timeline because there's going to be a component here that like you get to it at the end, you're like, wait a minute, where did you discuss this? So I had to put it back in here. Well, the business vision timeline is when you're looking at this, you want to put something out no further. In my mind, I don't want you creating any longer than 3-year plans, 36-month timelines. And there's a reason for that. And I'll come back to, I mean, quite frankly, the main reason for 36-month timelines is there's just too many variables beyond 36 months. I mean, think of like, let's face it, in 2 years, we're going to be talking about the next presidential election, right? Like who are they going to nominate? And like, I know, right? Like, I just want to hide under my desk. Just tell me who it is. I don't care anymore, right? You just warn me out, right? Like, give me a decent candidate and I'd actually might get excited, right? So not to make this about politics, but the point is in 36 months, there's just too many variables about which country is going to be attacking which, and, which celebrity is, doing what with whom, and all these different things that are distractions. But the reality is there's a lot of different components going on in the market that's just too hard to predict. So that's why I like 36-month timelines, and you can always keep that as a 36-month timeline. In my opinion, it's worked out quite well for me. So I like a 36-month and a 12-month timeline. When you start to break it down a 36-month timeline, again, I don't have a lot of time to unpack this, but I want you to think RPM, revenues, profits, and metrics. Revenues, profits, and metrics. And if you don't know the difference, then let's hop on a call. But revenues, profits, and metrics for your 36-month and revenues, profits, and metrics for your 12-month. So I'm talking about from now till 12 months out and from now till 36 months out, right? So basically that 36-month timeline would be your 3rd year. So month 25 through month 36. Then when you break down from 36 month to 12 month, it'll go for, you'll break that down a little bit differently. But here's the difference. And I want you to pay attention to this. Most people vastly overestimate what they can accomplish in 1 year and vastly underestimate what they can accomplish in 3. So I want you to make that 36 month, that third year, I want you to make that one a bit of a push. I want you to make that one like, man, that'd be crazy if I hit that. But your 12 month, make it more pragmatic. Make it maybe 10% more, 15% more, 20% more than where you're at now. Don't make it like 500%. You're like, oh man, I want to hit 40 million in sales and you're at 3 million now. That's not pragmatic, right? Because there's just too many variables to try to hit that in 12 months. And I know it's like, well, shoot for the moon and you'll aim in the star, you'll land among the stars, right? It's a great meme, it's a great calendar, but it's not the truth. So just want to make sure, because the reality is you are going to be learning things. We learn and we grow exponentially, not geometrically. So when you're again coming back with these business vision timelines, beyond the 12 months, you go 36 month, 12 month, then you break that down into 90-day projects, which is aligned with your 1 year vision, right? Then you break those 90-day chunks, right? Should be 4 of them in a year, into monthly and weekly goals. And then you break those weekly goals and monthly goals into your daily 5. Your daily 5. Now, we're going to come back to the daily 5 here in a second, but the daily 5 is where the action is. It's where you're going to be doing any day that you determine is going to be an action day or a work day. You come up with 5 needle movers, 5 things that will move the needle, up to 5 things, up to 5 things. It's not a daily 71. It's not a daily 314, right? Does anybody have that to-do list that's got 97 items on there, right? Right? Like, okay. I get it. I get it. I've got 2 hands from Lauren. So we're not doing that. What we're doing is up to 5. For me, the number's 3. I like 3 because when I have 3 on there, I know I'm getting all 3 done. When I have 5, it's a crapshoot. And guess what I do for the daily 5? I do the easiest ones first. All right, not necessarily the most important. So for me, I like a daily 3, but daily 5 is the absolute max. So it's the 5 needle movers, the 5 things that are going to move you towards your weekly goal, your monthly goal, your 90-day project, your 1 year business vision, and your 3 year business vision. Does that make sense? Yes. That makes sense? Okay. So you can chunk this down into a very pragmatic, applicable plan to move the needle every single day. So now you can say, well, shoot, now I know I can get this thing done. I'm going to pull this other stuff into neutral. Give yourself to pull that stuff into neutral, and now you can actually have some actionable steps to move towards that. All right. So now let's talk about infrastructure. Infrastructure, there's really not much to talk about. Infrastructure, right? Vision's where you want to go. Infrastructure is going to start like drawing the map. Okay. So really, when you're looking at infrastructure, it's the bones of the business, right? It's the desks, it's the chairs, it's the software and the computers and the phone systems. And hopefully you don't have a phone system that looks like this, right? That's like a cell phone, right? Hopefully, because again, now your customers can call you anytime they want. And whose fault is that? Is that your customer's fault? No, that's your fault. Exactly. So you can't complain when they're calling you. So again, this is the sort of thing that you have to start to think about. Again, it's websites, it's all these different things. It's the bones of your business. So you have to think about it. Well, why does vision come first? Is it just because it spells Viper really nice? Well, no, it kind of does, but it's not. That's not why. Infrastructure comes next, because if you're going to be, let's say that your vision for the future, Augustine, is to lay on the beach in Spain, rubbing cocoa butter on your belly for 2 months out of the year, right? Great vision. Okay, Trina's on board with that, right?
Yeah.
Right. So if that's your vision, and you build an infrastructure where you have to return emails and phone calls in a timely manner, that's going to be a terrible experience for you when you're trying to lay on the beach, rubbing cocoa butter on your belly. All right. So you have to stop and think about this for a second. Is that you want to build an infrastructure that's in alignment with that vision. Right. So the infrastructure is just, again, the desks, the chairs, the software. So that's why you want to make sure that you're doing this in the right order. So going back to the Viper method. Again, we talked about vision, we talked about infrastructure. Now let's talk about process. And we're looking at process. Process is simply how you do stuff. And process is broken down into 2 areas. It's broken down into the tactical and the strategic. So let's talk about the tactical part of process. Tactical is basically, like I said, how you do stuff. It's your SOPs, your standard operating procedures. For if you're in the military, this is all the stuff. This is like basically how you do stuff. It's your opening procedures and your closing procedures. It's how you answer the phone. It is how you prepare a bank deposit. Um, all of the different things, like if you have an accident, like these are the sorts of things that are very standardized within the business. This is something that Michael Gerber talked about in the E-Myth when he was talking about making sure all the stuff is documented. And this is really important stuff. It's like checklist stuff. It's all the stuff that basically that no one wants to do, super boring, but it's again all the day-to-day stuff that you do. That's the tactical stuff. That's the stuff that you can learn from different gurus, like, oh wow, I really like that thing that I heard on this YouTube video, right? That's why I'm not going to spend a lot of time on that, because you guys know what is important to you. You guys know what kind of help you need. So what the other side of this, and again, not to say that I can't address tactical, but again, it does need to be in alignment with your infrastructure or you put the tactical stuff that runs on the infrastructure that you built, that all stays in alignment with your vision for the future, right? So the infrastructure and tactical processes, that's the system. That's the system part of the business. Okay. The other side of tactics is so let me make this quick point here. This right here, the infrastructure and the tactical part of process, that's the system part. Okay. So we talked about tactical. Now let's look at strategic. So when you're looking at strategic and the strategic planning involves three areas. It involves people, it involves the purpose, and it involves the promotion. So when you're looking at the different for like the people side of things, is like, who are you going to bring in to help you with your strategy, right? So like think of it in this analogy where you built this warship, this battleship that's inside this harbor. The strategic planning is like, cool, let's go out and make some trouble. Let's go out, let's take this boat out of the harbor, and now we're going to plot a course from here to there. You're like, well, there's really rough seas in between here and there. You're like, cool, we're either going to go around them, go through them, right? Or we're going to hold back and wait till the seas lighten up, whatever it is. But we have a strategic plan of going from here to there. There's no point in building this battleship and just letting it sit in the harbor, or letting it just get blown around by the economic winds. This is why strategic planning is so important. So you really need to start involving the people that this will take to take you from here to there. That's what my role as a strategist is for oftentimes for people, or how to just get their business to run better or more profitably, or to do it so they're not working 50 hours a week or more. So this is really, really important when you're looking at it from the people side. When you're looking at the purpose of the strategic plan needs to be in alignment with the core purpose that was defined back in the business vision section, right? So when you're thinking of the purpose of the strategic plan, this has to be in alignment, because it would be, if it's not in alignment, it's going to get confusing to the people that work for you, and it's going to get confusing for your customers. It would be like if Starbucks started selling chainsaws. It doesn't make sense, right? It would be like an HVAC person who all of a sudden starts installing fences, right? Or a furniture store that started selling ice cream. You're like, why? Like, are you known for ice cream? Like, why are you selling ice cream? That doesn't even make sense, right? Like it can get very confusing for your people in your organization. So that's why the strategic purpose has to be in alignment with the core purpose. And the next part is promotion. Promotion is just you have to let the word get out, because nothing happens until people know about it. And that is, your internal people, obviously, like, the word gets passed down, but it's also, you have to promote and let the other people know. What I'm doing right here with you guys is part of promotion. It's letting people know that I am a strategist and I'm good at what I do, right? And I can own that, because my wife will happily tell you there's plenty of things I'm not good at doing, right? Apparently, I can't wash dishes without getting the entire kitchen wet. I don't know. Are they washed? You're welcome. So it is what it is. But all I'm saying is that you have to have a promotional piece to what it is that you're doing. Otherwise, the strategic plan will fall apart. So in terms of process, when you're looking at tactical and strategic, you have to have both pieces of the process. So we talked about vision, we talked about infrastructure, we talked about both elements of process. Now let's talk about execution. This is one of my favorite quotes, and it's by General George S. Patton. A good plan violently executed now is better than the perfect plan next week. So this is where perfect is the enemy of done. Where it's like, well, once it's absolutely dialed in and perfect, then I'll publish my book, right? I have published multiple books, and this one here is my fourth book. And if I waited until it was absolutely perfect and error free, the world would never see it. Right? I promise you that there's no shortage of probably extra spaces or a comma here or there. I mean, it's not terrible, but there's no point in trying to make sure it's absolutely perfect, because perfect is just it's a, excellence is good. Excellence is very good. And I'm very happy with the way the book turned out. And a lot of people are too. But I just want to make sure that you make sure that good is good enough. So most plans, let's face it, this is about execution though, that most plans fall apart in execution. And this is part of the reason is because we have too many priorities. And having too many priorities has the same impact as having no priorities, right? Remember when we talked about that list of daily 75 things that we're going to do, right? This is why the daily 5 is so important, because it's up to 5 highly specific actions that you can take, which will move the needle towards your vision, right? So that's the daily 5. So this is why part of this is really important when you start to, obviously, you have defined out your vision and you start walking this back to the things that are really, really important to you. So that might be, if you're trying to grow your business, chances are it's going to be related to promotion. It more than likely is going to be related to, how am I going to get the word out there in a way that is going to drive the type of business that I want, the more profitable type of business that I want. Not all business is profitable, and not all money is good money, right? If you're talking about highly, high margin stuff, or stuff that is super easy to make money and you can do it really quickly. So there's different formulas for that. But this is also why you should be leaning in and having somebody to hold you accountable. And having an accountability partner that, from my estimation, increases your rate of success by over 600%. And I'm telling you, that should not be someone that you're married to. That should not be your accountability partner. That should be your life partner, right? And this is why it's important to have someone that can help hold you accountable. And when I know Lauren, she's in a 90-day challenge with me right now. We have accountability partners. And the reason for that is because, hey, you need to show up. Where are you at? Because if you're not showing up, again, they're like, oh, wait a minute, hold on. I didn't want that kind of accountability. I wanted the easy kind of accountability, right? Everybody signs up for accountability until they actually get it. So you just got to be careful about this. And again, it can be someone, it should be someone that will hold you accountable, and where there's real consequences. That might be, okay, hey, if I don't do this, I'm going to write a $10,000 check, right? So that's the kind of accountability you'd be looking for. So if it's we're going to wrap the Viper method up with reporting. We talked about vision, infrastructure, process, execution, now reporting. Reporting is just simply it's just reporting on what happened. And I break these down into two areas. They are lead metrics and they are lag metrics. Lead metrics are based on your actions and activities. They lead the results, right? And that's what lag metrics are. They're just simply the results of the actions and activities. And that's it. So you have your lead metrics and your lag metrics. If you don't like the results, you just look at the inputs. You just look at your actions. You just look at your activities. It's really not any more complex than that. So that's when you start to look and say, like, hey, look, now this is where you have to start to pay attention, where lead metrics and lag metrics can get a little confusing. Can you control the number of sales that you get? Not directly. Can you control the number of phone calls you make? Absolutely. Can you control the number of direct mail pieces you send out? Yes. Or emails that you send? Yes. But you cannot control the number of people who pick up a phone or call you or buy from you, because that's out of your control. Those are lag metrics. So make sure you're measuring those, and make sure you actually have metrics like that are measuring your activities, that are measuring the results of your activities. So if you make 1,000 cold calls or you send out 10,000 mail pieces, how many are a result of those? And you need to have a way of making sure that you measure those activities. If you're not sure how, again, let's hop on a call. I'm happy to tell you how to do that. All right, so that's the Viper method: vision, infrastructure, process, execution, reporting. So that's item number one. We're going to speed up a little bit, and we're going to talk about the people portion of this, which is item number two. Again, systems are important. The systems are incredibly important, but they are going to only get you so far. And they are important because they provide stability, they provide consistency, and they provide a measure of accountability for making sure that things are consistent and that they get done. But they are also limited, that they don't really make good subjective decisions. As good as AI is, I don't want it making certain decisions that are subjective that really could impact my bottom line to a very or customer satisfaction to a high degree, right? Like AI might make the decision based on profitability when I really want it to make it be based on the human side, the human factor. Oh, I'm sorry, we can't do this because it's not profitable for us. Meanwhile, you go, wait a minute, I know that person. They're a good person. They've been a great customer. They've been a customer for 10 years. Of course, I'm not going to charge them a late fee for the one time they're late because their grandmother died, right? Where AI might default to profitability and say, no, those are the rules. No one gets a pass. I don't know, man. I think AI can be limited on that in terms of making subjective decisions like that. So next is it does not adapt well to market changes, and it coming up with creative solutions, it's limited on that too. So systems are good, but they are not going to be a substitute for human connections, and that's why the human component. Again, we talked about this the systematic and process approach for the first part of this webinar, but now we're going to be talking about the social and people aspect of this. Now, I'm going to from this perspective, I'm going to look at the 3 pillars model of leadership. And this is what I teach from the 3 pillars. And this is trust, vision, and communication. I don't have time to unpack these at all. This is literally this could be like a 4-hour course just with these 3 things, but I am going to hit some high level stuff here. So why do you think leadership matters at all? Well, this is the concept of what I call a leader boss. A boss is someone who is in charge only by virtue of their title. They say, "You listen to me because I'm the boss." And that person is they rely very heavily on their title when that's a boss. A leader is someone who let me back up for just a quick second. When you have someone you just basically say, "Hey, I'm the boss and this is my title," people are going to follow that person only because they have to. And they will never do more than what the minimum requirement is. Do you know, have you ever had people who work for you like that? That's your fault. That is your fault. And if I had 3 hands, I'd put them all up because I was that guy. Because I hired people that would not do any more than the bare minimum. And that was a failure of leadership. So I'm just telling you now, will everybody respond to leadership? No, but that does not mean that they've got a spot on your bus. There's not a spot in my boat for people like that. And I used to allow that because I was a poor leader. And we'll talk about that here in just a quick second. But when you are a leader, when you're a true leader, now you lead because you have authority and they will follow you because they want to, and they will do more than ask, and they will step up when, even before you ask them. So that is the concept of a leader boss. Is a true leader is much more effective because they've established that authority. And I think both elements, as a business owner, as a leader boss, though both of these things are necessary. So when you're looking at, and this was something that John Maxwell had talked about. If you know John Maxwell, he's written a bazillion books. But I really like this, what he walked these through in terms of different levels of authority. Level 1 is that positional authority, like I talked about with a boss. Level 2 is a permissional authority. Permissional authority is basically where people will follow you because they want to and because of what you're doing for them. Level 3 is a production type leader. This is a leader who gets stuff done. And people follow this guy or this gal because of what they're doing, not only for them, as they did in level 2, but also what they're doing for the organization. Because they say, wow, that person is great and they know how to get things done. The number 4 leader is a developmental leader, right? I think he called it people development. But people development is really just about how they are actually, now you're starting to create other leaders. And they're creating and fostering other leaders. And leadership is a big deal. And they start getting them to make decisions based on their own leadership ability and producing more leaders. And level 5 is the pinnacle leader. Now people are following that person by reputation. because they've heard of what that person can do and what they've been able to accomplish. Now, interesting thing, not everybody here is a level 5 and not everybody's a level 1. Everyone on this call, for some people on this call, I'm a level 5. For some, I'm a level 4. For some, I'm a level 1. I'm a positional authority. Actually, I'm not even positional authority because Lauren's got the hammer, right? She could boot me out of this meeting, right? She's drunk with power. Um, but realistically, she like when you come on this call, the only reason that you maybe watch is you're like, okay, well, this guy's a level 1 leader. He might have something to say, he might not. But as I have taught you some things, maybe I'm a level 2 by the end of this call. Maybe not. It's up to you to decide, not for me. So again, when you go somewhere else, when you go into a new position, when you go into a new situation, you're starting all over again, right? So you just have to keep in mind that this does not translate perfectly to everybody. You're not a level 5 with everybody. You may only be a level 5 with select people, and you may not be a level 5 with anybody. And I would say I confidently can say that I'm a level 5 with a few people. So this is also interesting in the context of leadership, how the DISC personality matrix plays into this. So if you're not familiar with DISC, it's a personality. It's been around forever, but the DISC personality profile is around. If you're looking at this as a matrix, there's big picture at the top. There are detail people at the bottom. There are people oriented at the right side on the eastern edge, and then there's things on the left. Okay. So these are your dominant types, your interpersonal types, your steady types, and your conscientious types. So this is basically how this funnels into the DISC personality matrix. If I break this into a circle and then I cut that circle into 8 different slices like a pizza, this is how this is broken down into 8 different leadership styles. So keep in mind the DISC matrix is still there, right? It's just broken up into 8 different slices. So this is interesting because this is how personalities can develop into different leadership styles and different leadership traits. So for example, the person at the top who's a pioneering type leader, they have a very strong action bias, right? Like these are the type of people that like jump out of the airplane and build the parachute on the way down, right? If you know those types of people, and they're a pain in the neck. They have all these different ideas. They take action quickly. They're highly innovative, highly persuasive. But the problem is that they don't often back up all that energy with anything meaningful. Like they leave people unsupported, which is great. It makes them good leaders in lots of areas, but it also makes them poor leaders in others. So let's look at their opposite, which is the bottom. So look at the southern portion of this, which is your humble leader. Now they are much more engaged. Sorry, 1 second here, guys. Sorry about this. Okay. They are much more engaged. They're much more intentional, and they tend to be very people pleasing. They're reliable, and they do like routines. But the problem there is they often take forever to move on something, which is the polar opposite of the pioneering type, right? Like they take forever to make decisions. You're like, come on already. We don't need to make sure that every I is dotted and T is crossed. Sometimes you just have to move. They take a very if it ain't broke, don't fix it mentality, which leaves them very, very vulnerable to changes in market conditions. And that is the opposite of leadership. A lot of leadership is around innovation, and many people don't like working for people like this. Like they never want to change, and that can be a problem. Right now, I'm not bragging on anybody. I don't know you people well enough. I mean, I know Michelle and Lauren, but I'm just saying this can be very problematic down the road. So let's look at like the affirming type leader. They're very much into people. So they are great at, they're amazing collaborators. They're warm. They're really well at building a supportive environment, which makes them very approachable. The problem is, do you think they love conflict? No, they hate conflict. They hate conflict. They think all conflict is conflictual, and they don't like tough conversations. And do you think that bodes well being a good leader? No, leaders need to make tough calls sometimes, and that's where you can be too. We're going to talk about being too caring versus having too much candor. We'll talk about that here in a second. So the opposite of affirming is resolute, and the resolute leader is kind of just, they're kind of like, just bullet points like, hey, they're strong-willed, they're very persistent. They tend to get, they tend to very much speak their mind. They love to debate. They love to solve problems. They're highly driven towards personal mastery. Like they don't have any tolerance for people who don't know their jobs, right? And they have a really strong ideal about how things should work. But the problem is they can be really rough on people, and they don't really take in the human factor because they're not into people at all. They're into kind of getting things done, and they don't have a lot of compassion at times. And that can be a big problem, and it can really turn people off. The rest of the 8 dimensions of leadership, I'll just go ahead and put those up. You've got commanding up in the top left. That's your strong D types. Your strong I types are your energizing. Your strong S types are your inclusive, and your strong C types are deliberate. So I'm not going to go through all of those, but the point is that if you understand the DISC personality profile and where you might land in some of these, this is really important in terms of your own leadership style. And you might be thinking, well, does leadership really matter that much? I mean, shouldn't just people just do what they're supposed to do? I mean, if I'm paying them, isn't that good enough? Look, the reality is when you're looking at being a leader boss, this is the difference between being too caring versus having too much candor. If you have too much caring, people will walk all over you. If you have too much candor, you will be perceived as a tyrant and people will not respect you. So I think that it really matters that you have an equal dose of both caring and candor. And you'd say, look, I care about you, but I have to be honest with you. And you can do that in a way, and that really, in my mind, that really is caring, right? That's it. If you're just telling people, oh, it's okay, you can come in whenever you want, even though coming in whenever they want cuts their hours. Well, it's like, well, you came in whenever you wanted. You only worked 22 hours this week. Your paycheck is going to be nothing, right? And how much money did they make for you? I don't know. I mean, you end up probably working a lot more hours and they didn't make very much. So this is why caring and candor, you need to have equal parts of that. So when you're looking at, if you're familiar with the book Good to Great by Jim Collins, it was a book written back in the 90s. Jim Collins wrote about a level 5 leader. And the level 5 leaders, these were people, he didn't describe it exactly the way John Maxwell described a level 5 leader, but these are people who were highly effective. They were very selfless. They weren't about attracting attention to themselves. They were always about doing the right thing and being innovative and having a really good multidimensional approach. Multidimensional approach meaning like they had elements of being energizing and deliberate. They had elements of being pioneering and humble, right? They were able to navigate those things, even though they were strictly, let's say they were a strictly resolute leader. They knew they had to set that aside at times because different people needed to be led in different ways, and people want to be led. They don't want to be managed. But level 5 leaders, they represented companies that were significantly more profitable. They grew much faster. They had a much stronger company culture, and they had a well-defined set of core values. Now, the types of companies that I'm talking about, they are publicly traded, and the interesting thing about this is that they were able to track the stock growth for these companies. In this particular case, this chart actually came from a subsequent book that was written by Jim Collins called Great by Choice. And these companies here, they took the main companies, what he referred to as the 10x companies, Amgen, Intel, Microsoft, and Southwest. They had unbelievable growth. I'm going to show you what their growth was here in a second, but they had compared those companies to basically the carbon copies or very close carbon copies of Genentech, AMD, Apple, and Pacific Southwest. Some of these companies were, I mean, they almost had the same business plan. Southwest and Pacific Southwest, they had the same business plan. Southwest went to Pacific Southwest and said, "Hey, we want to do what you're doing. Can we model you?" And they said, "Sure, copy whatever you want." And for a while, they literally had the same like photocopies in their planes because it was literally the same business model. So there was no reason at all both companies shouldn't have done as well. Well, you're going to see the results here in just a second. Amgen, now keep in mind, this is a multiple. I'm not talking 24% more. I'm talking 24 times more. Okay. So I'm talking you know, like $10,000 would be worth $240,000. So when you're talking about Amgen grew 24 times the overall market. It grew 77 times the entire industry, meaning the industry that it was in. Intel grew 20 times the market. It grew 46 times more than the other competitors in its industry. Microsoft 56 times the market, 119 times the software market, the software industry. And Southwest, which is unbelievable, grew 63 times the market and 550 times its industry. 550 times more than the airline industry altogether. And in fact, at one point, Southwest had more value. I think it was right after 9/11, had more market valuation than all of the American airlines combined. Combined. And that is because of all the things that they're doing, is because they had sound leadership. They had sound processes for sure. But it was interesting that they had very, very impressive returns. Now, remember this company right here, Pacific Southwest? Guess what happened to them? They no longer exist. They went out of business. That's right. They went bankrupt because they got into all sorts of weird stuff. They lost their way, and they just had bad leadership. So Southwest really is a company. I hate flying them, but they are a great company to model. If you're looking at the 100th best places to work, the list frequently represents the highest stock returns, and leadership does make a huge difference because growth requires change, and leadership is what manages that change. So you might be thinking, how in the world do I get people to care as much as I do? Or I feel like I should be much further along in my business. This is where leadership matters, because growth requires change and leadership manages that change. So we talked about both from this part. We talked about the systematic part and we talked about the social part. So the last piece here, I know we've only got about 10 minutes left, but I'm going to get to the 4 core functions now, because the 4 core functions put all of this stuff together. And all businesses have to have these 4 core functions. So the 4 core functions in every single business, they're pretty straightforward. And the customer's journey happens in this order. They are lead generation, sales, operations, and accounting. Lead gen, sales, operations, and accounting. So from this aspect, when you're looking at lead gen, so let's go through the lead gen piece here real quick. Hold on one second. There we go. So lead generation, when you're looking at lead gen is where this is where you're targeting your client avatar. Now, where have you heard target avatar before? Target avatar, you heard that in the business vision, right? You heard the core purpose, core values, client avatar. So this is the person that who you exactly want to work with. And when you know exactly who you want to work with, it makes it much easier for you to direct your marketing towards. And these might be the clients that spend the most amount of money and they bring the least amount of drama, right? And I don't know about you, but in my 40s and 50s, I am about eliminating drama from my life. I just don't want to deal with it. So this is also why it's important to understand the 15 reasons why people will buy. And when you can understand the 15 reasons why your client avatar will want to buy from you, why, how you can help them make money directly or indirectly. How do you help them make money? How do you help them save money? You might say, well, I sell them furniture, or I do HVAC, or I do other things for them. Yeah, but directly or indirectly, how do you help them make money, save time, avoid effort, escape pain, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. So go through this list that's on here, take a shot of it. How do you go through this list and make sure that you can help them directly or indirectly get them to do this? Because if you are not clear on this, your marketing is going to be very fragmented and your people will not know exactly how you help them solve problems. So when you're looking at the 4 core functions of business, lead gen, everything needs to support your lead generation function. If you are trying to grow, if you are trying to scale, this is the area where you need to be focused on. All right? Because you can have the best, most efficient business. You can be a paragon of virtue. Your sales technique can be so dialed in, you could sell ice to Eskimos or voting booths to Castro. And guess what? And you can still starve. Right? So you can never, ever, ever take your foot off the gas when it comes to lead generation. And it filters all the way through from sales to operations and accounting. Everybody is always looking to develop leads. So when you get to the sales function, the sales just continues the conversation that's been started by the lead generation. And it understands that effective selling is about finding solutions, not holding people's heads underwater until they say yes. So when you're, generally if you're going to get stuck, you tend to get stuck in the operation, right? You tend to get stuck in all the doing. right? And this is what happens with a lot of business owners, and they get stuck in the operational function because they don't have a way out, right? Because no one can do what they do. But I promise you, everyone is replaceable. Everyone is. And that's what I had to learn in my own business. Now, if you're going to ignore something, this is what gets ignored, is the accounting. And I have an accounting degree. And I'm just telling you, it usually goes something like this. Well, I've got more money in my bank account this month than last month. I must be doing all right, right? Or less money, whatever. But generally for me, I have an accounting degree and I said that. So I'm just telling you, I am the least qualified person to do the accounting in my business because I won't do it. I just won't. I'm more focused on lead gen and sales and operations. I like teaching and coaching, but in my property management business, I have people that do all that stuff. I don't mess with that. So let me ask you, are all of these the same skill set? Obviously not, right? This is why you need good people. And all of those functions matter, but they matter for different reasons. Okay. So this is why when we start talking about core values, when we talk about that in the business vision, having a defined set of core values allows you to interview better. It allows you to hire better. It allows you to coach and to counsel. It makes terminating a lot easier. I mean, and I'm just not talking about terminating employees. I'm talking about terminating clients, right? You ever have a client that just like, oh my gosh, you are terrible as a human. Just go somewhere else, right? So yeah, we all had those people that just like, man, you're a better customer for someone else. Please go away, right? If they don't align with your core values, that's okay. Just hey, you know what? We don't align, and that's all right. You go find somewhere else to be, right? But it sets the tone for meetings. It defines your company culture and your DNA, and it unbelievably raises the level of personal commitment. Is that when you define your own personal core values, they actually were able to track people's individual levels of commitment when their own personal core values were well defined. So there really makes difference for no other reason. If you even if you don't define them in your business, define them for you personally. Right now, this is the difference because again, you got to keep in mind when you define the core values, you got to keep in mind that you're not the only person making decisions in your company. And the reality is that if your core values are not defined, guess what they're defined by? They're defined by the strongest personalities in your business. And if that's not you, or if you're not around, guess who's defining them? It's the strongest personality in your business. And that may not be what you want representing your company. So you got to keep that in mind. This is the whole reason, again, this is where we started talking about growing by addition versus growing by multiplication. So this is when you hire a person to do like a payroll clerk, right? You hired that person to be a payroll clerk. You hired one person, right? But when you bring in a leader, when you bring a sales manager, or when you bring in a manager who is also a leader and has a leadership capabilities, this is growing by multiplication. Because when you bring in that individual, you get all the people that they associated with. You get all the people that they networked with prior to coming to you, right? Or when you build those people up within your own organization, this is growing by multiplication. So if you want to grow quickly, if you want to grow by addition. If you want to grow quickly, grow by multiplication. Grow by bringing in leaders. Grow by bringing and developing leaders. Okay. So this is, I think my slides were a little bit out of order there. So this is back up. So this is where we're set to scale, right? So now we've talked about being set to scale. Now we're going to talk a little bit about the resources here. I just want to give you a couple of resources here. This is a page on Facebook. I don't know if everybody here is on Facebook. If you're not, that's okay. But this is just a group that I put together. It's not super big right now. I think there's like 450 people in there right now. We're in there. We put stuff in there every single day. Some of it's on leadership. Some of it's on business. This morning, I was actually talking about a more personal thing. If you've ever read the 4 Agreements, I was talking about that this morning. But it's really for business owners. So if you would like to come in there, Lauren is going to put a link to that in there right now. She's going to give me a thumbs up. So I mentioned in the beginning, if you would like a copy of the Time Wealthy Advantage, if you'd like a signed copy, she's going to go ahead and put a link in there. It is cheaper than buying it on Amazon. Plus, I'm going to also give you a 30-minute one-to-one coaching session in there. There is an order bump in there. Actually, I have to update this because I did finally get all 4 books in. There are 4 order guides that you're welcome to purchase in addition to that. It's just for an extra $20, but go ahead and take a look at that if it's interesting to you. If it is not, I promise you will not hurt my feelings. I had both of my feelings removed in the Marine Corps. Most of my feelings were removed by my Scottish mother and Italian father growing up. So, if that makes any sense. But actually, the last piece here, so that's here. And then finally, if you guys would like to just hop on a 15-minute phone call, I know, or a Zoom call, I know many people oftentimes they like, well, that's great, but how do we work with you directly? If you'd like to just hop on a 15-minute call, it is not a sales call by any stretch. I do not need to sell hard. I do this because I really enjoy it, because most of my money actually comes in through real estate. But I get to do this because I love it. I think I'm pretty good at it, and I really want to help people out. So I'm happy to hang around if anybody's got any questions. Otherwise, if Lauren, if you just want to go ahead and kill the recording, I can hang out for a few minutes. Otherwise, thanks for coming by, guys. I really appreciate it.